What is up, Montana sports fans? You've just stepped into Wide Left Sports, where the stories are real, the passion is loud, and the athletes come first. This isn't just another sports show. This is Montana. Small towns, big dreams, long nights, early mornings, and people who flat out love the game. From Friday night lights to summer ball under the sun, from gym floors to turf fields. If it matters here, we're talking about it. Today's episode is another chance to give Montana athletes the mic and let them tell their story the right way. So settle in, turn it up, and get ready, because this is Wide Left Sports. But first, here's a word from our sponsors. Wide Left Sports is proudly sponsored by TDS Fiber, bringing fast, reliable internet to Billings and beyond. Whether you're streaming the big game, uploading content, or just trying to keep the whole house connected, TDS Fiber delivers the speed you need without the lag. Check availability in your neighborhood and make the switch today. TDS Fiber, internet built for real life. Hello, welcome to Wide Left Sports. Today I am joined by MSUB Volleyball coach Scott Keister. Scott, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I am doing very good myself as well. So, my first question is, what kind of gave you your love for volleyball?
You know, I grew up in Indiana, southern Indiana, and so I was a basketball kid. And, you know, Indiana's a basketball state, and if you don't play basketball, you better get out. And so, ever since I was a kid, I was about a freshman in high school. I knew I wanted to be a coach. I just thought it would be basketball. And I came out west to go to school and loved the mountains. So that's what drew me out west. And I was introduced to the game by a lady named Joanne Reeves at Ricks College, which is now BYU Idaho. And she kind of tricked me into it. But I fell in love with the sport and picked it up really quick. And I did a 180 and just kind of switched from basketball to volleyball. I love that it's just a pure team sport. You know, it's hard to win with just one person. It takes a whole crew of people to make it work. So I really like that aspect of it.
I love that. So what has kept you coming back every year, to the sport and to coaching it?
Mental illness, probably. I question that every year, but no, I absolutely love the connection with the athletes and working with them and seeing them develop and progress and not just in the game, but in life, and seeing them, develop those life skills. And, the most rewarding thing for me is, 5, 10, 15 years down the road, I get a phone call and, hey, coach, I'm getting married, or I'm having a baby, or I got this promotion at work, or whatever it is, or just to say hi and check in. I get that all the time too. And that's what really keeps me going, is those relationships that last forever.
That's awesome. So you obviously got your start in volleyball over at BYU Idaho, or Ricks College as it was at the time. But what led you to MSUB?
Yeah, my wife actually has a lot of family here in Billings. And so she and I met in Bozeman when I was coaching at Montana State. And then we did a big circle. We went down to Utah and spent some time there. And then a job at Northwest College in Powell, Wyoming opened up, and that was a little bit closer to Billings and her family. And so we decided to go for that. And then, when this job opened up, it was just kind of a no-brainer. Like, yeah, let's go. A friend of mine is the baseball coach here, and he had great things to say about the program and the college, and I really relied on him quite a bit for his opinion. Well respected. I really respect him. So, it just kind of seemed like a good fit.
That's awesome. So just in that little bit, you mentioned a lot of different levels of college. You had the JUCO level, D2 with MSUB, and then D1 with MSU in Bozeman. So what has it been like for you coaching at all those different levels, and what differences do you see at the levels?
Yeah, there's, I loved being in the 2-year world. I kind of landed there just by happenstance. I didn't know much about it. And when I left Montana State, that was kind of the job that was open. And so I took it and fell in love with it. And I think there's a real niche for that 2-year world. And I think a lot of athletes overlook that 2-year world. I think there's some advantages to it. And it's not for every kid, but I think there's a lot that overlook it. The hardest part about that 2-year world, and one of the reasons I wanted to get back to the 4-year, was, a 2-year, you get the athletes for about 18 months. And so right when you start to get some progress with them, they're gone and they're off to their 4-year, which is great. It's great for them, but frustrating as a coach because you want to keep working with them and continue seeing that development and kind of the fruits of their labor, so to speak. So, talent level, I think it really depends on the program. Our conference, the GNAC, is brutal in volleyball. It's very good. And, I would put the top 4 or 5 teams in our conference against a lot of D1 schools. And so I think, even at the 2-year level, you've got a wide range of competition level. You've got the top teams in the country, and then there's the programs that are just there to, they're offering opportunities for athletes, which is great. And I think at the 2-year or the D2 level, I think we kind of see the same thing. There's the upper echelon that can compete with anybody in the country. And then, there's some that are providing opportunities, and we're trying to get a little bit better so that we can compete with that upper echelon. That's kind of the goal. But yeah, I think the landscape has changed a little bit when you talk about the differences in level. The NIL and the portal and all that stuff that goes with it. We've seen a bit of a mind shift from how can I earn what I'm going to get to what are you going to give me before I even earn it? And that's posed a bit of a challenge. And so we have to dig in the weeds a little bit more to find those athletes who just like to get down and dirty and put their nose to the grindstone and get to work, and that blue collar mentality, which is really what we're looking for in our program right now.
For sure. So you mentioned that, you're trying to get MSUB volleyball to the next level of being the top at D2. And so what has it been like so far to kind of take those stepping stones to where hopefully the Yellow Jackets are in that top of the top for the D2 volleyball scene?
Yeah, it's been an interesting process for sure. I got hired pretty late in the season. We didn't start until July, or I didn't get hired until July, and then we started in August. And so I didn't have much time for anything. And so I really kind of took that fall season to really evaluate the players who were in the program because I didn't recruit them. So I needed time to get to know them and what they can do and what their mentality is and see if they can buy into my way of doing things. I've not been one that really cares about what other people did in the past or anything like that. I'm sure everybody does the best they can. But I know the way that I do things and the expectations that I have. And so it was kind of fun to just kind of no pressure this season to just, hey, I'm going to coach the heck out of them and let's see if they are coachable and how they can handle hard situations and tough situations. And they for sure had a tough row to hoe this year. And I was really impressed with their mentality of how they approach each game. And then, we get to the end of the season and it's reevaluation time of, we've likened it to kind of a construction plan. We had to survey the land and that was the fall time. And then we did a little bit of demolition and now we're starting to put the pieces together that we can start building some stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. So then with this being basically your first year, I know you're not quite a year yet at MSUB. What has it been like so far, and how excited are you to get to have those building blocks and get it to where you want it to be?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I know it's going to be a process. When I was at Northwest College, it was kind of the same deal. I took over a program that wasn't doing well at the time, but had success in the past. And it's a little bit easier to do it at a 2-year because your roster turns over really fast.
Yeah.
Your rosters turn over about every 6 months there, and that's not the case here. And so I'm not the kind of coach that's going to come in and just clean house and get rid of everybody just because they weren't my recruits. I like to give them opportunities to grow and to fight through things and to realize that, hey, I can do some hard stuff. This is a tough drill, or this is a tough situation, or whatever it is. And that doesn't happen overnight. You got to give them time to work through that mentally, to work through it physically. And so we know, I'm not naive thinking that this is going to change overnight. And we're very honest with our recruits and letting them know that, like, we're not going to go win the GNAC next year. Coaches aren't supposed to say that, right? But it's, we've got to be realistic with what we're doing, and little steps, and we want to do it right. And, we're not the big D1s that have all this NIL money that we can just go buy our players. We need players that buy into the program, that buy into the college, that want to be in Billings. And I'm excited about it. We've got the pieces that are returning from last year, I think, are good pieces. I think our team chemistry is fantastic. We just have to get better at volleyball. And that happens in 2 ways. One, in the gym, just training the skills and getting the extra reps in and working harder than our opponent. And then on signing day, we get better on signing day too. So we're out there trying to find better talent. And, it's interesting in my, in the interview process, I got to meet with the players, and the returners asked, hey, what's kind of your recruiting like? And they're, of course, worried about their spots on the team at that time, I'm sure. And,
of course.
And I said to them, my job is to recruit better players than you. And their eyes got really big. And then I said, I follow that up by saying the recruits that I bring in, I'm going to tell them the same thing. Every year, coaches are looking for better talent than they have. That doesn't mean that what you have is not capable. It just means, hey, that's part of the process of getting better. And so if you know that I'm recruiting better talent, hopefully that lights a fire under you a little bit to work a little bit harder in the gym to get more quality reps and to work a little harder.
I love that. So one of the questions that I had in what you were saying is, you mentioned that you tell recruits that MSUB is not going to win the GNAC this year or next year. And so how do you get recruits to buy in to that and buy into the grind of, hey, we might have some rough years, but it could pay off when you're a junior and senior?
Yeah, it's a tough sell for sure. But I'm a coach that, when I'm recruiting, I'm pretty open and upfront with players, because I don't ever want them coming in here saying, oh, well, hey, you told me we were going to have steak dinner for dinner every night. And then that's not, we're having like pizza or something, and so kids can see through that. And I want to make sure, the feedback that I've gotten is that recruits, and especially their parents, really appreciate that honesty of, hey, here's where we're at and here's what we're going for. And there are some kids out there that thrive and love to be a part of building something, just like I do as a coach. If I didn't want to build something, I wouldn't have come to this job. I would have gone to a ready-made program that was ready to win and just step in and don't screw it up, right? But there's some joy to be found in just grinding through it and figuring it out like a little puzzle piece, and it just takes some time. And, I think it's been a little bit harder to find those athletes, but they're out there, and it just takes some work. It's every day. We're emailing, we're calling, we're visiting, we're doing all kinds of stuff, recruiting on that side of it. And then with the kids that are in our program, it's daily education of, hey, look at this. Our first 6 weeks of spring was all speed and agility stuff. It was very little volleyball, because we knew that to compete with our conference, we had to get faster, we had to get stronger, we had to touch higher. And if we could do those things, we could start competing and doing some stuff. And so now, as we've been tracking it, they've been going through some brutal workouts. and And credit to them. They've been doing it and they haven't complained about it. But after about 5-6 weeks, they started seeing major progress. It wasn't even little progress. It was major. And they were like, oh, hey, okay. And in a society now where we're instant gratification based, that was good to see that, hey, I grinded through this and it was hard for like 5-6 weeks, but look at the results and look how great I'm doing. And it just fueled them for the next step, which is really what we want.
Oh, that's so awesome. So my next question is, you know, you mentioned the transfer portal and NIL and all that stuff that's going on in college sports right now. And obviously that is an option at MSUB. And so how do you balance all of that with getting high school homegrown recruits to the volleyball program?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the portal. I think that there are some athletes that are in there for the right reasons. Lots, and that is a lot of different reasons, right? But I think too many times we're seeing athletes jump into the portal because they're upset about their scholarship or they're upset about their role on the team or they didn't just do their homework before they went to the school. Hey, first offer I got, and so I'm going to take it out of fear that, again, there's a lot of different reasons for those things. And so when we look at the portal, I don't spend a whole lot of time in it. And I really, before I really look at a kid in the portal, I will do some major homework on them. How many times have you transferred to this point? Are you one and done everywhere you've gone? Or is there a special circumstance why you're leaving? We ran into a kid recently that, she got into the portal because she was on the East Coast and she wanted to get back closer to home because her grandparents were ill and she wanted to be close to them. Great. I understand that.
Yep, that makes sense.
And so we do a lot of communication with other coaches and things like that. But I love to right now we're looking at junior college transfers and the portal, more the junior college transfer, just because of those issues with the portal that I just mentioned. But we're trying to balance out our roster because we were very freshman heavy last year. And so trying to balance that out a little bit. But once we get it balanced out, I really would love to exclusively look at just bringing in freshmen and developing them through the program and seeing them stay here for 4 years. And I tell recruits that I want you to come here and love it so much that you never even think about the word portal. And whether that's you're a starter or you're not a starter, it doesn't matter because it's all about the athlete experience, how we're making them feel valued, letting them see the progress that they're making. And I'll tell you, my dream is to have an all Montana roster and go win with them. And I think it's possible. But we've got to get there. And there's a lot of good schools, a lot of good universities in Montana that we have to compete with. We're the only D2, but there's some really good programs across the state with those NAIA programs, along with the Cat and Grizz programs. And so we've got to get a little bit better so that those Montana kids want to come to us instead of, somewhere else in the state. That's the dream.
And that was kind of my next question is, Montana is kind of a volleyball is pretty popular in Montana. And so how important, and you kind of answered this, is it to you to have Montana kids on the roster and bought into MSUB?
It's huge for me. I think not only support for the program just naturally with, family close by and, it creates a little bit more natural attendance at the games and a little bit more energy in the gym, which is always great. But just having pride in where you're from, and even if that's, a kid from far Western Montana, they're still Montana proud, right? Even though they may be 7-8 hours from home. And so having that sense of pride also brings it to our program. And we're a state school. Yeah, we want to have pride in our state and we want to get all over and we want to touch every corner and have our fingers, in every part of this state somehow in development of the game. That doesn't mean we're going to take every player that is interested in MSUB. We just can't. And, but we sure would like to. But we also, it's important to me in our program that we're involved in the community, not just the Billings community, but the community of volleyball around the state, and helping that grassroots level grow and get better. I know when I was at Montana State, that was 15, 16 years ago, the talent level in Montana was not great. And we didn't have one Montana kid on the roster at Montana State. And it was just hard. I could probably count on two hands the number of D1 level athletes there were in the state, and they all wanted to get out of the state. And that viewpoint has since changed now that I'm back in Montana and I've been around the state, and I've been close enough to it that I've remained recruiting Montana. And it's been nice to see the level of play through the club system and the grassroots level. The level of play and the skill level has tremendously gone up. And you see that with all these NAIA schools. They're doing very well nationally with Montana kids.
Yeah, for sure. And so my next question is about the MSUB community. And, you mentioned you're close friends with Coach Watt up there. And I've known Bazemore for, I don't know, about 12 years now. Mm-hmm. And so what has it been like to be a part of the MSUB community and, really have them embrace you this first year?
Yeah, it's been nice. I've been a part of a few administrations, and I really like this one. The support, and, coming from a 2-year, it's kind of shock value. And it's been a long time since I've been at the 4-year level. And so to come in and go, oh, I've got to do this and this and this and this. And for admin to come in and go, no, we got that. You just coach. That's our job. And so it's, coming from a 2-year where you don't have the resources that we have here, it's a breath of fresh air, and it frees me up to be a coach and not an administrator or whatever it is. I mean, there's a whole long list. And so they've been great with me of showing support. I've had 1,000,002 questions along the way, and I ask them every day, and I apologize every time because I'm like, oh, I know I have to get annoying, but I'm going to keep asking. And so, but yeah, it's been really great. The support for all the teams, and the pride that we have across the board. To see what our women's basketball team did this last weekend was unreal. I'm watching it on the stream in my house, and I'm jumping up and down in my house, and it's like, hey, I've only been here 7 months, and I already have a sense of pride for all of our sports here, not just women's basketball because of their success, but we're getting out to the baseball games, and hopefully softball here soon. I'll get we'll have some home games, and track is starting this weekend, and there's a lot of cool things going on, and just to have that camaraderie between the sports is great.
That's awesome. That kind of leads me to my next question of, obviously the women's basketball team did extremely well and is still doing extremely well. The men's basketball team did well this year. Baseball always does pretty well. Softball always does well. How neat is it, and how much does that help your program to have kind of program-wide success there at MSUB?
Yeah, it's a wake-up call to our athletes to go, hey, look, we can have success here. This is not like an issue across the whole program where we don't have money and we can't win and whatever it is, insert your excuse, right? And so I think just, I've been doing this a long time. I don't know what was done in this program before, and I really don't care. And I've told the players that I know how I've done it, and the great coaches that I've been fortunate enough to have as mentors. And I know what is successful, and it's not just the skill of the game. And so when it's nice to have those other sports be successful, one, it gives us some pride in the name that we're wearing on our own jersey because it's the same as theirs. But it also, athletes and coaches, last time I checked, we're all pretty competitive. And so, if you're getting 20 wins in a season, then gosh dang it, I want 21, and that's what we're going to work for. And And hopefully success breeds success, right? And we're not here just to spin our wheels and to just, oh, hey, it's great to be part of a team. Like, that is great, and there's great things that come from that. But we want to make sure that there's that pride and there's that, desire to improve every day, even if it's small little pieces, so that we're seeing that success over time. And then you get to sit and take pride in it. And going back to your previous questions of, how am I selling recruits right now? Some recruits, I tell them, like we just had a transfer come in from another D2. She started with us in January, and I said, hey, we might not win the GNAC during your time here, but we are going to at some point. And you're going to be the one that gets to say, I started that. I was there when we set the foundation. And they're going to be just as much a part of those successful years, whether it's championships or not, as the kids who are actually on the court during those times.
That's awesome. And so then my next question is, obviously Montana is a massive state, like you said, 8 hours away, and you're still in the state of Montana.
Yeah.
And so with recruiting, you and your coaches cannot be everywhere. And so how can athletes get on your radar and help that recruitment process start for you guys?
Yeah, you're right. We can't be everywhere. I'm actually going to Las Vegas for a big tournament this weekend, and which is great, but there's going to be, 6,000, 7,000 athletes there. I'm not going to get to see them all. And so the kids that I'm marking to watch are the ones that reach out and they communicate and they show a desire for our program, and we know as coaches, most of those initial ones are mass emails. They're just trying to get their name out there, which is great. That's what they need to be doing. And then it at least gets us on their radar, like, hey, all right, I'm going to be there and I've got it marked and I know to go to this court at this time and I'll watch you for 4 or 5 minutes. And I hope those are some 4 really good 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's the tricky part with recruiting. We can't sit there and watch hours and hours of one kid. And so we're hoping that, the 2 or 3 minutes that I get to watch an athlete, that hopefully that is the true, their true self on the court. And me as a coach, and I know there's a lot of coaches that do this, it's not just me, but it's pretty widespread, is that talent catches our eye, but then we watch, what are you doing? You make a mistake. What are you doing? You get subbed out. How are you when your team's not even playing? Are you interacting with your team? Or, we coaches, we look at a lot of weird stuff like that because we want to know what kind of player we're getting. So as far as what players can do, it's communication. If you're interested in a school, email them, go to their camps, but just make sure you're communicating with them, and education of rules at the different levels. So like NCAA has a rule that we can't talk to kids until June 15th of their junior year. So when a sophomore emails us, we can't respond back, even though we may love their film and we can go watch them. If they send us their tournament schedule, we can absolutely go watch them and all that stuff. But too many kids take that no response as, oh, they're not interested, which isn't the case. And so that's an NCAA rule. Junior colleges don't have that rule. You can talk to them whenever you want. NAIA, I'm sure, is different than that. And so
Yep.
These recruits and their parents educating their kids on the different rules of different levels so that you don't eliminate an opportunity just because of an assumption.
Awesome. And then my final question for you is, for anybody that hasn't been to an MSUB volleyball game, what can they expect?
It is going to be competitive. It's going to be high paced. It's going to be fun. And that's really what I want. Even if we lose, I want people walking out of that gym going, wow, that was fun to watch. We have athletes that are going to get up and hit hard and be passionate about the game. And that was one thing we preached all year. We went 0-18 in conference, but we never gave up, even until that, that last match that we played of the season in Fairbanks, Alaska. It was cold and it was a long trip. And, but we fought that whole match. And we competed point for point. till the very end with the team that won our conference. And I think that says a lot about what these kids are doing, and the culture that we have is, hey, we don't care what the record is. We don't care what the score is. We actually the athletes weren't even allowed to look at the scoreboard about halfway through the year. You just said, just feel the match and play hard and play aggressive and play 1 point at a time. And it was a beautiful thing that there was a couple of times where we won the set and they didn't know it because they weren't looking at the scoreboard. They were just, hey, point for point. I'm like, hey, we just won. And they're like, oh, sweet. They're, then they start celebrating. And so that's really cool to see. And really, it's really gratifying as a coach to know that your players buy into what you're asking them to do, even though it might be different from what they've done in the past. Whether it's a previous college coach or their high school coach or their club coach or whatever it is, whatever that past was, it's nice to see them trust me a little bit and buy in and go, okay, I see the vision here and let's just keep working.
Awesome. Well, I love that. And I hope more people go to MSUB volleyball games and support the Yankees. For sure. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on this morning. And I know you'll be a recurring guest because we already talked about that. I'll have you on a lot more. So
awesome.
Excited to do this. So thank you so much for coming on this morning.
You bet. Thanks. Have a good one.
You too. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Wide Left Sports. If you liked what you heard, hit that subscribe button, share it with a friend, and keep spreading the word, because this platform grows when Montana sports fans show up for other Montana athletes. These stories matter, the work matters, and the passion around sports in this state is something truly special. Huge thank you to our sponsors for helping us make this possible, and thank you for listening, supporting, and riding with us. We've got more conversations coming, more athletes to highlight, and more Montana stories to tell. Until next time, keep supporting local sports, keep cheering loud, and keep it right here with Wide Left Sports.